If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in space, but you also might be interested in the images that I get on this channel. Take for example the ones that I'm about to show you right here, and right there, and right there. You've probably seen that NASA and James Webb and all those space telescopes do this too, but there's one thing that you guys are missing out on. In today's video, I'm going to reveal the secret to any astro image and any space image, and that is the editing and processing of it. I'm going to walk you guys through the secrets of how I do my processing on my images, so hopefully you guys can follow along and maybe learn a thing or two along the way. I'm going to be taking a look at some data that I recently acquired last night on the Orion Nebula, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the image that I will show you guys at the end of this video. My name is Tanner and welcome to the AstroTan YouTube channel. Let's get into it. Alright, so we're going to get started here, and I have something special to share with you guys. This is the Orion Nebula that I've been taking pictures of over the past night, and I only got about 3 hours on it, but we're going to see what we can do with it. So right now I'm going to open up PixInsight. This is what I use to edit all of my images, so I'm just going to show you guys what I do personally, and yeah, we're going to see how everything goes. Alright, so we've got PixInsight loaded up here. And we're gonna open this up in my hard drive. Alright, so here we go. We have the file. This is the unfiltered Orion. This was with no filter. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my process icons. This is from Lucomatico, and I just follow all of his icons. I'm gonna close out of all this stuff. This is just stuff that I don't have. So this is like Blur Exterminator, Star Exterminator, all that stuff. I don't have that. So right here you're gonna see all the icons that I'm gonna be using today. So the first thing I'm going to start with is doing an STF, which is a screen transfer function. This is just going to show me what kind of detail I have in my image, so you can see that it appears pretty green, so we're going to fix that up really quick. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this link RGB Channels, and then I'm just going to hit auto stretch again, and there you go. You can see that it got rid of that color cast right there. So it looks like everything's going to be fine here. This is a fully calibrated image, so that means I have darks, flats, dark flats, everything. I have everything, except for bias frames, but I don't really need those. Alright, so now that we kind of have an idea of what we got going on in this image, ooh, look at those star colors. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a dynamic crop. And just so you guys know, this image is not stretched yet. This is just showing us visually what we have going on in this image. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this down a little bit, not too much because I want to make sure that I have as much as I can going on in here. So I'm going to crop this a little bit. That looks to be good. Alright, that looks good. So just so you know, as you can see, this image is still linear, which means that it's not stretched yet. So if I do that and I reset it, that just gives me a visual. So if you have the newest PixInsight version, you'll see that they have a new gradient correction thing, and this is really good at basically getting rid of all these gradients. You could see that in the top left of this image we have a darker area and then there's a lighter area down here. So what this is going to do, this gradient correction is going to make sure that the background is completely neutralized, everything's fine. So I'm just going to use the default settings here. It works perfectly fine with my images, so here we go. It should take a little bit. Waiting patiently. There you go. Alright, so you can see that it completely eradicated that weird black color cast. I don't even know what that's from. Probably from some light pollution stuff. So you can see now that that background is completely gone. So we have a nice spacey looking background. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all of my colors are basically all natural. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to go to Script. I'm going to go to Image Analysis, forgot there for a second, and I'm going to go to Image Solver. And once I go to Image Solver, so Image Solver basically solves my image using the stars in there, and it's going to use this to basically color calibrate my image later. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click M42 because that's the target that I am shooting, and it's going to hopefully pop up with the Orion Nebula. There you go. I have all of my telescope specs in here, like my pixel size and my focal distance, so you're going to have to enter those in to make sure that this thing works. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to plate solve my image right now and basically find out if this is the Orion Nebula or not. So this is an important thing for PixInsight to know when I do the next step, so we're going to hit OK and hopefully everything works. You don't have to worry about this. I mean, some people put this down. This is basically if you want to be a little bit more specific in terms of really like what's going on in your picture, but I just hit continue anyway, so I just hit yes. It works just fine if you don't enter all that stuff. Just waiting on it. And okay, looks to be done now, so on to the next step. Okay, so we just got done with the image solver part of this process, and now the most important thing I think for doing this is you're going to want to go to SPCC. This is spectrophotometric color calibration. That's a lot of words, but this is a very powerful tool. This is basically going to color calibrate your image based off of other sky data. So this is going to make sure that your colors and everything are completely natural and as they should be. So you need to make sure you have things installed here. You need the Gaia catalog. There's YouTube videos on this, and basically you need to make sure you have that in there before you have to get this thing to work. So basically all I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure that I have my red, green, and blue filters installed. And as you can see, I had a UV IR cut filter installed here. It's basically unfiltered, but it makes sure that the images are pretty sharp. If I were using a narrowband image, I would just put my Optolong L Enhance in all of these because that's a narrowband image, so if I needed to do that, then I would just include that. So I'm going to reset this back to UV IR cut because this was unfiltered, and I'm just going to hit go. I'm just going to hit this little square button and boom. So this is going to color calibrate my image. It'll probably turn the screen completely black because that's what it does. So yeah, this is going to be some good data. It's going to give me a little bit of a graph. Oh yeah, you can see it made my image completely dark there. So this is a little graph. I'm not really sure what this is for, but I guess that means it works. So yeah, and the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to auto stretch this again, screen transfer function it, whatever you want to call it. And you can see that the colors here are nice and good. These colors look good. They don't have that weird purple color cast anymore. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run Noise Exterminator. This is a noise reduction thing. As you can see, I have a lot of noise over here, especially in this area right here. I want to make sure that this part kind of comes out a little better. So Noise Exterminator, you have to pay for it. It's noise reduction, as I said. But make sure you do this before you auto stretch your images, or I mean, do this while your image is linear. It'll just be more, it'll give you more freedom when you're editing your pictures. So I'm just gonna turn these up to my settings here. This is normally what I do. I turn the denoise up to 0.8 and the detail up to 0.25. So I'm just gonna hit go for that, and that should not take that long. Take a minute or two. Alright, so Noise Exterminator has finished. I'm just going to show you guys a before and after. So this was before the noise reduction, and this is after. And what a difference that takes. And this, I'm pretty sure Noise Exterminator is only about 60 bucks, and it's really worth it. I mean, you could see right here, a lot of noise, and it's just completely gone. So it's pretty clutch if you're getting a good image like this one, or a noisy one. You just want to get some good noise reduction up in here. So alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually stretch this image. If you want to use the same process icons that I use, you'll have to go to one of Luke's channels when he does his processing tutorials too. So this is where I got his, and we're just going to use one of these stretch links here, and I'm just going to throw it on this image, and it's going to stretch my image automatically. So boom, there it is, stretched image, everything looks great. So I have really no complaints here. I mean, I could see a lot of the dust, it looks really nice, and for 3 hours this is great. But there is an issue that I will have to take care of. I do this in all of my images. I'm going to make a starless image so I can edit that separately, because otherwise the stars will get blown out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit this clone for starless little icon here. And then I'm going to load up StarNet, and you have to install this in a PixInsight. If you have Star Exterminator, that works too. I'm going to put StarNet onto this image. This is the cloned image, so you can see this is the original, and then I hit the clone for Starless onto this image, and then I got this one. So make sure that you're doing this on the cloned image. So I'm just going to hit apply to this one, and we're going to wait for that to be done. So how you guys doing today? Good? Good? What you guys want to talk about? StarNet's doing its thing, so gonna have to wait. Okay, so StarNet is almost done, and it's gonna be a pretty dramatic difference. It's gonna literally remove all of the stars in the image. It's awesome. So almost done, almost done. Boom! Look at that. That looks cool, man. But sadly, we're not going to use this one. This is going to be thrown away soon. But it is important. So we're just going to put this one to the side, and we don't need to use this anymore because we're going to use a new star image, I guess. So we're going to leave this here. StarNet's going to be used again in a second. And the cool thing about this is that when you use these icons, you can use all different kinds of star reduction methods. So here's the first one, and look at how that reduced the star size. Pretty dramatically, I would say. So you can experiment with whatever kind of star reduction methods you want to use. Typically I use the first one. I think it looks the best in my images, but you can really use whichever one you want. So there's the second one, and here's the third one. The third one takes a little longer. And there you go. I mean, that one, it's pretty good, but I'm going to stick with the first one for this process. So boom, there you go. Looks pretty nice. So I'm going to have to use StarNet again, and this time I'm going to make sure that I have a Nebula Mask, or not Nebula Mask, I'm going to make sure I have a Nebula image and also a star image at the end of this. So I'm going to have a separate Nebula image right here, and then there'll be an image of just black and a bunch of stars. So the way to do this is all you have to do is just create a star mask. So I'm just going to hit apply on that one, and that's going to run its thing. Okay, it's almost done. 99, and it's done. Alright, so as you can see, first thing we're going to do, we're just going to close out of that because we don't need it anymore. You can see we got a star mask here. I'm just going to label this stars because that'll be important later, or I guess just easier. So you can see we got all the stars here. These stars are going to look good. We're going to saturate these up, make them look really nice because this is unfiltered data, so they're going to get those natural star colors. So I'm going to close out of this. I'm just going to drag it over here because we don't need it. I guess I don't need this one either, so we can just throw that one away too. And here we have the nebula thing that we're going to work with here. So the first thing I'm going to do, even though it stretched it a little bit already, I'm just going to stretch this a little bit further here in PixInsight. So I just created a preview right there. And the only way for you to see it is if you create a preview. So I'm just going to move this slider a little bit using the histogram tool right here, histogram transformation. I'm going to turn the black point down a little bit. And there you go. I'm just going to hit reset on that and close out of that, close out of the preview. And you can see it had that change right there. So we went from here to this. So we stretched it a little bit more, gave it a little more contrast. And you can see we got this little nebulosity stuff going on here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just completely saturate this image. So I'm going to go to Curves Transformation, go to Preview, and I'm just going to saturate it slightly a little bit, just so these masks know what they're doing here. So saturate it a little bit, move that curve up just slightly, and boom. I'm gonna reset that again, and you can see we have a little bit more color than what we had before. So kind of like a grayish color right there, and then we saturate it. We got a little better blues going on here, especially in the Running Man Nebula right there. So that looks awesome. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my blue mask on this, so just going to throw it on there. These icons are really helpful if you ever, they're just easier in my opinion. So I'm glad that Luke made these because it's really easy. So what I just did, I just threw a mask blur on here just to make sure that the transition between the black parts and the white parts are not as crazy. So basically this blue mask is going to saturate the blue parts of the image and leave everything else alone. So I'm going to go back to Curves, go back to the preview, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to saturate these blues again. So with this blue mask applied, it's going to really only saturate the blue. So you could see if I really make this dramatic there, you can see how it goes from that to that. So it only messes with the blues. And I can kind of see that this image is a little bit purple, and that's okay if I want to keep it purple, but I think I'm going to make it a little bit more of a like bluish cyan color. I think that looks really cool too. So we're going to leave it like that. I think that looks pretty good. And, oop, that's a little too much, so we're going to reset that. So there we go. And masking, I think, is one of the most important things when getting an image, or especially when editing them, because you really have more freedom over the different colors that you choose. So you can see right there we got a lot of that blue now. So the next thing I'm going to do, I notice there's some red in here red, pink. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a mask on there again too. So that's going to leave out the red. Oh yeah, you can see there's some red right there. And you can see there's some red back here too. And that is actually true. This is reflected off of the nebula itself. So some parts are going to be a little bit more red, especially in that outer area. So I'm just going to keep doing the red masking again and do that blur and throw it on here. Move this to the side, go back to my curves again, and I'm going to go to preview. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to saturate those again. So you can see, look at that dramatic difference there. You can see it's only working with the red again. So I'd say right there's a little good. I'm going to boost the red channel a little bit. Not too much, don't want to make it look that bad. And oop. Alright, I think right there is about good. So I'm going to reset that again. And this is starting to look good, guys. What do you guys think? So I'm going to close out of this red mask again. So you can see we really got some good color going on here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to split the channels. And you're going to see this right here, split RGB channels. I'm going to stretch this image a little bit more, just slightly a little bit more. You can see it gave us the red, the green, and the blue channels. Ooh, that blue channel's not that great. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be using the red channel because I kind of want to deal with some of the outer stuff right here. I kind of want to bring those out. So I'm going to close out of the green one because I'm not going to be using that. We're going to keep the red and we're going to get rid of the blue. So the way that this works, it's very similar to what I was doing with the masking here, but I'm going to make this a little bit more dramatic. I want to get rid of the background stuff going on here, so I'm just going to kind of make this a really kind of ugly stretch. We're going to make sure that we're only dealing with the dust, so it's fine if you clip a little bit of your data, which means basically like this. You don't really want that though. So something like this where you make sure that you have a lot of the nebula still reserved here, that's going to be good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close out of this, close out of histogram transformation, and now we're going to mask blur this again 2 or 3 times, and then we're going to add this back into this image here, just like that. So now it is covered the nebula and the outer dust. We're going to go to histogram transformation. Changed my mind there really quick. And now it's going to bring out that outer stuff. So you can see we're bringing up the nebula a little bit and bringing up that outer stuff. You don't want to go too far. I mean, for some images it's different, but because the Orion Nebula has such a bright core, it makes it really tough sometimes. So we're going to leave it like that. And I'll deal with that core in a second because, you know, it's kind of being annoying. So now I can get rid of this, and this is where I'd stop in PixInsight. I mean, I'm going to use it again later, but we're going to move over to Gimp in a second. But this is what you can get out of selective masking for colors and really bringing out all this dark dust over here using the RGB channels, specifically the red one for this one. But let's move into Gimp now, so let's get it. Alright, it is Gimp time. I want to open up Gimp. I love Gimp. It's a free software, so anyone can get their hands on this, so let's start. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and oh my gosh, dude, I forgot to save the image. Alright, we're going to go back a little bit. So here, I'm just going to save my image in my Astro folder. We're just going to make this the YouTube Nebula, because that's a cool name, I guess. So we're going to hit save, leave all of these the same, hit OK. Alright, now we can go over here. So I'm going to go to Open, and go to Desktop, Astro, here we go. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. YouTube Nebula. So I'm going to open this up in Gimp. So it might ask you to do something like this, and I'm just going to hit convert because I don't think anything really changes. So you could see that we have our image right here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tone this down a little bit. And that's about good. And you could see right here that the core of the nebula is really bad. So let's fix that up really quick. So it's a really easy fix. Just go to shadows and highlights in the colors tab, and literally all you gotta do is just turn that slider down a little bit. You can really do it how many you want, but that looks pretty good. We kind of took care of that decently well. Maybe I'll bring it down a little bit more. That looks good to me. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sharpen this image up. And the way you do this is you go to Filters, Enhance, and High Pass. So I know a lot of people nowadays use Blur Exterminator, which is way better than High Pass by a long shot. But the way I use my sharpening is I just use High Pass. It basically enhances like a lot of the finer details in your images. So I have this ready. I'm gonna leave everything at default, and I'm just gonna hit Overlay. And Overlay is gonna sharpen it up, and I'll show you guys if that worked or not right here. So let's zoom in on this area right here. So we're gonna turn that off. That was before the sharpening, and there's after. So you can see that it was a little bit of a decent difference. So I'm gonna do that again, just right now. I'm gonna sharpen this up again. I'm gonna do it one more time. It'll take a little bit, but it's gonna sharpen it up again. So I really only do this twice, otherwise things start to get a little bit too crazy. So there you go. It looks pretty sharp to me. So you can see it sharpened it just a little bit further. Here's the original, and here's it sharpened now. So that looks pretty nice. And let's see, what else am I gonna do here? So I'm gonna saturate this a little bit more, just as a whole, I guess. And right there's fine, I believe. I think I'm going to maybe bring the blues down a little bit. So I'm gonna go to Hue, Saturation, maybe bring the blues down just slightly. I think they saturated them a little bit too much. I think I'm gonna bring the reds up just a little bit more. Just like that. Alright, so I think I'm going to bring this up just slightly a bit more. So I'm going to go to Curves, and I'm just going to bring this up a little bit, because I kind of want to get that dark nebula right there. You can see our histogram is pretty good, but I don't want to over-process this, which I'm kind of getting on the brink of doing. But I think that this looks pretty good for right now, so let's bring it back into PixInsight. Maybe we can bring down... No, you know what? I think we're going to be okay on this. So let me just go to Hue Saturation again. I think I'm going to bring this, make it a little bit more red right here. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. So let's export this. I'm going to go to Export As, and we're going to say that this is the YouTube Nebula 2. Just easy thing to remember. And make sure the compression is on none, because otherwise this will compress your images and it'll lose a little bit of details. So save IPTC data. I just want to make sure that everything that I changed in this image is all fine. So there we go, and I'm just going to hit export. And that's looking good, guys. Looking good. Alright, it is time to mess with the stars. So here was our original image, so we're going to close out of this one. We don't need that. Right now I'm going to focus on the stars now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Curves again, click the preview just like we did before, and go to the saturation slider. And I'm just going to crank this thing up. This is how I do it. I don't know if other people do it like I do it, but I literally just crank this thing up. And you could see that there's a pretty dramatic difference already. So I'm just going to close out of these again. See those, look at those blue stars. So you can see that was before we saturated things and after. So you might run into some issues like this if you kind of saturate a star a little too much, which is okay because I kind of like my images saturated. So it's really a preference thing, but I'm just going to run something called SCNR, and this is going to kind of balance out the colors a little bit. So I'm going to bring these down to 0.37. You can see it kind of minimized it, made it like not as crazy. I'm going to do the same thing for the green, since the blue and green are kind of really crazy things when you edit your astro images. They like to really mess around with the background and stuff. Red's okay because a lot of nebulae are red anyway. So there we go. We're going to do that one more time. I'm going to go back into Curves, go back into Preview, and saturate this one more time pretty dramatically because I like having a lot of colorful stars. So we're going to close out of that, reset that, and you can see, man, dude, these stars look great. But we're going to bring the green down a little bit again, and then the blue, there's the blue. Bring it down just slightly. There we go. Alright, I think those stars look good. I don't know about you guys. So we're going to bring these stars, we're just going to keep them over here, and we're going to hit open. Wherever I saved it, here it is. Jeez. Okay, here it is. Here's YouTube Nebula 2. It's from Gimp. And there you go. Right there we have our image, our nebula image, and our star image. So the next thing we're going to do is, I think, actually, I'm going to saturate this slightly more. I'm really picky in terms of my saturation here, so I'm just going to maybe do it a little bit more, just like that. That's good. Alright, that looks good to me. So the next thing you're going to want to do is we're going to combine these two images together. And it's really cool how this works, and it's also really easy. So basically, I think, before I combine these, I'm going to go to Identifier. I right-clicked on this, so I'm going to go to Identifier. And I'm just going to put Nebula. Just like that. And now, this is really easy. You're going to go to All Processes and Pixel Math, and you're just going to click the drop down menu for destination, hit create new image, and then I'm just gonna put nebula plus stars. So this is why it was important to label these. So you can see that I labeled this nebula right here, it changed right there, and then stars. And simple as that, guys. Hit the square button, hit apply, and bingo. Look at that. We have our image, but I'm not totally done with this yet. So here we go. This was our PixInsight process along with our Gimp. So you could see we have a lot of those nice different star colors. We have a lot of cool nebulae colors going on here. I sharpened it up really nicely, I think. Lots of good stuff going on here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as image 13, or you can just name it whatever, but I'm going to save it image 13, and I'm just going to hit save, and then we're going to bring it over to my phone, and this is where things get a little controversial in terms of astrophotography processing. I'm going to bring this over to my phone, and I'm going to edit some more on my phone. So I'm going to screen record that, and I'm going to show you guys how I do this. Alright guys, we are almost done with our image, and we are in a new editing platform. This is Adobe Lightroom Mobile, so this is on my phone now, and this is really where I go to do some final finishing touches on my image. So as you can see, this is what we came up with using Gimp and PixInsight, so I think we did a pretty good job with this. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe saturate this a little bit more. Go to about 20. 20 seems pretty good to me. Next thing we're going to do is do some vibrance. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. And I'm noticing that we have a lot of weird blotchy noise patterns here. So to solve this, you're going to go to Detail and Color Noise and bring that up a little bit till everything seems to be okay. So there we go. I think that is looking outstanding, guys. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to Contrast. I'm going to bring this down a little bit to about 20 so we have more separation between the sky and those nebulae. Maybe bring the blacks down a little bit. There we go. Ooh, man, dude, that looks good. I'm not trying to brag. So there we go. I think that looks good. And I think I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more. A little bit, maybe about 25. And this is where images really come to life. This is my favorite tool in Adobe Lightroom Mobile, and that is the dehaze slider right here. So I'm just going to show you guys what this does. Look at how it brings out all of that cool stuff right there. So you can see dehaze does a really cool job and a really great job doing that. So let's see, I think I'm going to go to color mix. Maybe bring up these reds a little bit more. Bring up the luminance there. And there we go. Guys, we are almost done with this image. So, let's see, what else should I do? Maybe I'll bring the tint up a little bit. And this is really just final adjustments here, guys. You don't really have to follow any kind of pattern here, but you just go off of feel, see what you think needs to be done before this image is shared with people. So we are getting really close to being finished with this, and I think I'm going to save that. We're going to bring this to a different platform now. So here we are in Afterlight, and I'm going to do some final finishing touches here. Just make that a little bit darker there. And I think the final thing we're going to do now, we're back in Adobe Lightroom, just add a touch more saturation. Just a touch. And maybe match that blue a little bit more. Just like that. Looks outstanding, guys. Looks really good. And I think I'm going to add a little sharpening here. And just a touch more contrast. Add dehaze a little bit. And maybe bring the highlights down. And man, dude, there's not much to do now. Guys, I think that is good. I think we are ready to share this image now. So if you followed along to the end, I hope this helped you guys in terms of getting a good image like this one, if that's what you guys think. You guys are the judge of this image. So personally, I'm happy with how this image turned out for only 3 hours, and I think I did a pretty decent job processing it, and I think this is going to be an image that I will be sharing. So even though I lied about the Rosette Nebula being the last thing I shot as a nebula, but I had to do Orion this season, I completely forgot about it. So I think we're all good to share this image, guys, and I'm going to show you guys this full image at the end of this video. So if you guys followed along, I want to thank you guys for watching, and time for the image reveal.